I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're diving into a transformative read that bridges the gap between boardroom success and spiritual fulfillment. The name of the book, The Spiritual Art of Business, Connecting the Daily with the Divine. It's written by a terrific author, a wonderful businessman. His name is Barry L. Rowan. And the book is more than just a business book. It's a call to infuse your work with deeper meaning and divine purpose. Backed by decades of C-suite experience, the author offers powerful insights into aligning your career with your calling. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on TV. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on television today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Barry, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks so much, Logan. It's my pleasure to be with you all.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. You have had a storied career, CEO at multiple corporations, top corporations, CFO at multiple top corporations. Did you always see the spiritual aspects of your life and business intertwining when you held those positions?
No, it really started, Crawford, as a great divide. And I had this kind of juxtaposition of this deep longing for God within me that was adjacent to this steely, strong will. And I really found myself in a crisis of meaning and work in my late 20s. And out of that, I spent the next, what would in retrospect would be 17 years, really trying to understand God's perspective of work and realize that I had had so many things wrong. I was just thinking about life wrong and work wrong. I was thinking about life from the outside in instead of from the inside out, for example. I thought if I just get the right job, I'll be filled up. And the corollary to that was I was trying to derive meaning from my work instead of bringing meaning to the work. And as we develop, a right perspective of our works as seen through the eyes of God, it makes our work life come alive. So it took me a long time to come to that place, but this renewed perspective has really animated and energized my career for the last 25 years.
I think it's almost natural when you first start your career to almost have blind ambition, that you just want to get ahead and you're not really thinking about the implications that your work has on your coworkers, the organization, and probably more important, the community at large, right? Don't you think a lot of people have blinders on when they first start out?
I think they do, although for me, I was always driven by a deep sense of purpose. I mean, I thought I was going to be a doctor because I loved science. I loved the idea of helping people. But then I realized I know I wanted to go into business because one is I didn't like the nature of the work as a doctor does, which is nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't right for me. But more importantly, I became enamored with this idea of leverage and realized that a person's contribution to the world is multiplied by the number of people they have working together toward those right set of goals, hopefully. And that was really what drove me to decide on a supplemental undergraduate major. But even having those, what you consider altruistic motives, I still couldn't put the picture together. And it took a long time to really sort out these many things that I was looking about wrongly.
How does faith influence high stakes decision making?
Well, I think it starts by informing us. We need to be carriers of the Spirit into the world. And as we are emptied of ourselves and filled literally with the living God, increasingly it'll be no longer we who live, but Christ who is living in us and through us. And so I often just say that, the best leaders are practiced followers. So as we follow the example of Christ in the world, I think it makes us better leaders for a number of reasons. One is we become more trustworthy because as our egos are put to death, we are focused more on advancing the cause of the organizations that we're asked to lead. So people say, oh, we're not out for ourselves, we're out to do the right thing, kind of irrespective of the consequences. And it leads to a broad-based definition of success. Being a business person, for example, and as the CFO of 4 public companies, this might sound crazy, but for me, increasing shareholder value was not the only measure of success. If you do it by leaving a lot of dead bodies along the way and not really taking care of people and creating an environment that enables us all to grow into the full expression of ourselves, then I think we have a really narrow, damaging perspective of what success is.
Do you think corporate America is doing in 2025? Do you think more CEOs and CFOs and C-suite managers should pick up your book and change their life course a little bit? Or do you think some corporations or most corporations are doing a pretty good job in balancing those profits for the shareholders with their responsibilities to the community?
No, I think it's a bifurcation that's occurring in the business world, in that there are kind of the haves and the have-nots with regard to values. And I think there are some people who are almost increasingly driven by greed, and you see the tremendous value creation of capitalism in our generation that's just been phenomenal. And yet it also leaves people behind. And yet there's also, I see a growing contingent of people who want to live an integrated life, who want to live a life that matters, and as seen through the lens of faith, living a life fully for God in the harshness of this world. And so that means that they are owning or leading businesses from this same kind of perspective. And I'm now being asked since the publication of the book to speak dozens of times a year, really around the world. And as I enter into this place with people, I'm finding there's a real groundswell of interest in people who don't want to live a compartmentalized life, who want to live a life, one life under God, and to see how every moment of our lives connects to our purpose in life, because our lives are just the summation of those moments. So if we can surrender our lives to Christ, what happens is that we then begin to see the will of God embedded in every moment of our lives. So, and to me, that's when life becomes really energizing.
Do you feel certain corporations, let's say Amazon, for example, should have a legacy of perhaps helping people, empowering people for housing, food, medicine, whatever it might be? That should be their legacy rather than stacks of brown boxes in front of our houses.
Well, I think I had a friend who ran a hospital, and she used to say, "No money, no mission," right? And so, if the business is not successful, nothing is enabled by that. And for an organization like Amazon or corporations, their really important responsibility is to the shareholders, and because they're the owners of the corporation. Now, I happen to believe that over time, it's not necessarily true in the short run, but over time, the interests of the stakeholders are aligned. So if you are focused on doing the right things, you will create economic value, you'll create a better environment for employees. And as employees are released to contribute up to their potential, they will contribute to a business that is flourishing. And by serving customers, and when we serve customers, we're really serving God, because God is really manifest in each of us. And so when you begin to think about it that way, and being a good corporate citizen, I think they all work together for this good and for this kind of mutually elevating expression of goodness in the world that I think makes God smile ultimately. So they can be in conflict in the short term, but I think in the long term, there's a deep alignment between doing the right thing and running businesses on the right principles, and financial success and broad-based success, as we're talking about.
Wonderful. What is a corporate mystic and how does that apply to your life?
Yes, I have been described as that. And uh, I guess I discovered myself reading a book called Mysticism years ago. I was on the board of a university. And as I opened this book, and I just started weeping, and I said, wow, this is me. And I didn't realize that was how I was wired. And really the thing I've come to appreciate about it, and the definition I have of mysticism, is because it's a really maligned word, is it's people who want to experience God, not just talk about God, but I want to have an experience of the living God and absorb his love, fall in love with him, and experience this profound intimacy for which we were designed. And the second thing is that the ultimate end state of the faith journey is union with God, where there is only one will, and that as I become less and he becomes more, as John the Baptist tells us, that it truly will be no longer I who live, but Christ living through me. And as that happens, we become this living body with new eyes to see, and we begin to see God in all things. And there's a highly practical dimension to this, which is it really has a leg on the ground. It's like the ladder that Jacob saw. The foot was on the ground, but it extended to heaven. And so to me, there's this beautiful bridge that occurs between the physical and the spiritual, and a seamlessness that results as a way of looking at life through this lens.
What does connecting the daily with the divine look like in practice?
I think what it means is having every moment of our lives aligned with our purpose in life. And so for me, I have some very practical ways of doing that. I have, for example, developed what I call a life planning framework that starts with having a rhythm of life and a rhythm of prayer. How does that connect with my biorhythm? And I pray for 1 to 2 hours a day and do an extended silent retreat once a year and did the one thing on my bucket list when I finished a corporate career, which was to do a month-long silent retreat. So it starts by understanding a rhythm of life and developing a rhythm of prayer, and then being clear about the roles that we have. So I think about it from the inside out, as we were talking about, Logan, from
Mhm.
uh, first all under the lordship of Christ, and then self, family, society, and these concentric circles, and then develop priorities for each of those roles. And I don't call them goals per se, but they're where am I going to spend my time? And it's really reoriented my perspective of a to-do list, for example. And I'm a great list maker. Here's my to-do list for the day. And, I have an 11-page document that is the to-do list for the year. But, the purpose is not to get everything done on the list. The purpose of making the list is to bring focus to the present so that
Yeah.
the end of the day or a year or a lifetime, I can say, did I spend my time the way God would have wanted me to spend my time? And ultimately, that's I think, one of the fundamental tests of being able to connect the daily with the divine is how did I spend my time? And is it in a way that would honor the creator of the universe as we get to be co-creators with him in this world?
In a way, it's sort of what would Jesus do?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
he's expressed in us, for Jesus exists within each of us, and
Yeah.
he's expressed, of course, uniquely through our own DNA and our own upbringing and our own experiences. And there's God loves variety. So I think there are
Right.
as many versions of that as there are people on the planet.
When it comes to having such a wonderful ambition to live a Christ-like example in a corporate role, what happens when you're faced with difficult decisions such as layoffs or pressure not to let the workers unionize? I mean, there's all kinds of things that we face as corporate leaders, right?
Yeah, there's tremendous pressure, and particularly being in a public company. And I always kind of like followed the admonition of Francis of Assisi, who said, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. And so for me, I hoped that everything that I did was an expression of that. And I've had to lay off people to save businesses. And when you look at it through the lens of faith, you look at it and say, well, what is the right thing to do for the business? And if we don't make those hard decisions, the business won't survive, and so nobody will have a job. And they're very, very challenging decisions, but they're done with a perspective of speaking truth and love and caring about the whole person and not being narrow-minded about what success looks like, and having, frankly, a broad enough perspective of compassion. In my early days, I had too narrow a perspective of compassion. I had compassion on an individual employee who was difficult, for example, but by focusing too much on that, I was not being compassionate to the rest of the organization. And it caused the organization to do contortions that was not fair to them. And so as we asked this person to leave, the organization was released to really achieve its potential with a deeper sense of freedom and love of the work that we're all set out to do.
Yeah. Sometimes there's no easy decisions to be made, but you have to work for the greater good. And the greater good at times might be letting go of that one troubled employee rather than sacrificing everyone else. What do you hope readers take away from this book?
I hope that first, they won't necessarily view it as a book, but as an invitation to enter a conversation with God between them and God individually. And as a result of that, I hope that they will develop a life-giving perspective of their work, of your work, to our watchers and our listeners, as seen through the eyes of God. So, how does God see your work? And as we see that through that lens and live our lives in that way, that I hope that each of your work lives will come alive as mine has. And that was really the reason for writing the book, because people asked me to do it. They said, I spoke all over the world on this topic and said, would you write this down? We'd like to think about these things more. And so the book has reflection questions and an opportunity to really engage in conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. And hopefully it has a great impact on the business world because I think that the leaders of the corporations have a vast amount of power. both on their employees and on the community. And if they start living in alignment with the spiritual side of their humanity, I think the world will be a better place because of it. The name of the book we've been talking about today is The Spiritual Art of Business, Connecting the Daily with the Divine. It is a powerful guide for anyone seeking to lead with both faith and excellence. Barry, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks so much, Logan. It was a real joy.
I appreciate your wisdom, your insight, and your great faith. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.